I'd just like to say hi and welcome to today's webinar, where we will be releasing and publicly introducing our highly anticipated new tool, the Bylaw template. I will introduce myself. My name is Josie Lee Gibson. I'm the Education and Community Engagement Manager with OARC. And just before we begin, I'd just like to remind everybody that this webinar will be recorded for educational purposes. And at this time, I would ask each of you, if you have not done so already, to mute your lines to minimize the background noise that will be received throughout the webinar. So I'll give each of you just a moment to mute your lines. Okay, so I wanted to start off first by providing, oh, sorry, somebody hasn't muted their lines. Let me just do a double check here. Okay, that's sounding a bit better. So I want to start off today by just providing some context and some background around bylaws. So I wanted to first speak about what is a bylaw generally. So a bylaw is a rule adopted by an organization primarily for the government of its members and the regulation of its affairs. So with that definition in mind, why do residence councils need bylaws? Because bylaws are designed to provide guidance and direction. This guidance can be referred to when conversations and processes are running smoothly, but more importantly, when councils enter an unfamiliar or uncomfortable territory when making decisions. So whenever a group of individuals get together for a meeting or a discussion, there will always be that differences of opinions and sometimes even conflict or uncertainty. So having sound bylaws in place will remove that personality, if you will, out of the discussion so that decisions can be made according to those preset principles and directions. Having bylaws helps eliminate confusion. It encourages consistency and protects the best intent of the council. Without bylaws, there is limited protection for residents and the work that they do can go unprotected. In our work that we do with residence councils across Ontario, we have found that the bylaws have often been overlooked. We've been called on many occasions to assist with issues within councils that would have been non-issues if bylaws had been established. So at this point, I'm just going to pause for 30 seconds and release a poll. If each of you would just take a moment to complete, you should be seeing it on your screen now. And the poll reads, does your residence council currently have bylaws? So we'll give you a few more seconds if you haven't already voted. Okay. So does everybody see the results of the poll on their screen? You should be seeing that 71% of those of us on the line have said that no, they do not currently have bylaws in place for the Residence Council, And we have 29% who have said that yes, they do have bylaws in place. So I'm just going to exit out of that and get back to the slides. So really our intent or our hope for today is that those of you attending the webinar will be able to be introduced to this new template, and by following this template that has been designed and tested in Residence Council, it will provide you what you need to move forward in developing bylaws that will help the success of your Residence Council. And I just wanted to make one clarification that yes, bylaws are guidelines to support your Residence Council. However, they do not take the place of the Long-Term Care Homes Act, which is law and governs part of the Residence Council's functions. So as we move forward, I wanted to just spend 2 minutes highlighting the process that we underwent to create the bylaw template, which again was sparked by Residence Councils reaching out to us for support on the development of their bylaws. You'll see here a bit of a timeline that we're going to go through. Back in April of this year is when we started the recruitment for what we called our bylaw usability test. So we started to reach out to Residence Councils who were interested in testing this template that we had created. Then we confirmed those participants and released all of our materials. So those materials included, of course, the template itself, but we also had surveys to collect data for pre-release of the template and post-release, so that we were able to kind of analyze that information from beginning to end. Throughout the time period of use, so they had the tool for 3 months in total. So in July and August, we did a quick check-in, and then September, which was 3 months later, we held a debrief to hear the feedback that our users had on it. So was it meeting the needs of Residence Council? Was it easy to use? Was the language used appropriate for Residence Council, and so on? And then in November, we took all of that information and the data that we had collected and adjusted the tool to implement those suggestions. And today, as I mentioned, is our official release of the tool for all to use and to benefit from. So it is available under your materials section here on this webinar, but it's also available on our website. So up to now, we've talked about what bylaws are, why Residence Councils need them, and we've just talked a little bit about how they were developed, or sorry, how this tool was developed. But we're going to spend the remaining of our time today getting familiar with the tool itself, the design and the layout, and how to use or to implement at your home with your Residence Council. So I would just like to say that if at this time, if you would like to access your materials and follow along that way, you're more than welcomed, or we will be showing them on the slides as well. But accompanied with the template is 2 supporting documents. Firstly, you will find the definitions page, which I won't review in detail today, but of course was included to clarify the language that is used throughout the tool. And secondly, there is an instructions page, which helps guide the use of the template. So we will first look at the instructions page before we dive into the content of the template. So how to use OARC's bylaw template. So again, these are our guidelines and recommendations. However, the great part about the tool is that it's very adaptable and flexible. So these 5 steps that you see here are very, very basic, straightforward instructions that are simply meant to provide a structure or a framework. So the first step that you see here is that we recommend that a small subcommittee or working group be formed to draft the bylaws. Now, we would recommend that this subcommittee be comprised of residents and residents leaders who have expressed interest, but we would also recommend that the assistant be involved in a supportive role to help members work through the process of the template. Secondly, we would suggest starting from the beginning of the document and working through step by step. Now we'll go through this, you'll see this as we go through the document, but there are many what we call prompted areas that will allow you to insert your specific information, such as home names, dates, locations, and it's pre-prompted information, so you'll just be completing or filling in the blank, if you will. We've also outlined here that you may want to plan for additional meetings to complete the template, suggesting that it may take longer than simply one meeting to work through the template. Once you have completed the template, of course, plan to bring this to a regular Residents' Council meeting for review and approval. Once approved by Residents' Council, your bylaws are ready to use. And number 5, we recommend that your bylaws are reviewed periodically and updated where appropriate. So for example, you may wish to review your bylaws at each election cycle, and if changes need to be made, this is considered an amendment, meaning that a majority vote will be needed to adopt those changes. So this here is just an example of number 2. We spoke about having prompted areas, and this is an example of what it would look like. So we would have a generalized statement, if you will, that will contain something in brackets where you'll need to put your specific information. So we would see then it would look like such. You would enter your specific home name to that specific section. And as we move through the template in its entirety, you'll see many more examples of this. So let's dig into the actual content of the template. Again, the template has been designed to assist your Residents' Council in developing its own bylaws. So it's been laid out to capture important sections of Residents' Council into one document. So the template is not prescriptive. It allows you to customize all the details in all of the areas. And so we're just at this point going to work through, there's 11 sections to the full bylaw. We're going to work through these, and then we're going to have an opportunity for open discussion. So if you'll just bear with me as we work through each of the 11 sections. So section 1, we capture members. So members of Residents' Council shall consist of only residents. Family members, staff members, or other individuals may attend meetings by invitation from Residents' Council. Members serve with no remuneration, meaning that no payment is received. Section 2 captures members' roles and responsibilities. So you'll see here on this slide, we do have members defined. So members being every resident in the home. So members' roles within, you would insert your home name, may include but are not limited to contributing the collective voice, advising and enhancing quality living, raising concerns and celebrations, and connecting with all fellow members. Now, when we move to section 3, you'll notice that section 2, which we just reviewed, and section 3, which we're about to review, are quite similar. However, they've been distinguished for a very important reason, and that being that recognizing that every resident in the home is a member of Residents' Council and plays a role in Residents' Council, even if they do not attend meetings or are not on the leadership team. So that's what's been captured in Section 2 here previously. Now in Section 3, we're identifying the roles and responsibilities of those members who have been elected into a leadership role. So you can see again, we've defined what a leadership member is, so those elected into a leadership role within council. And here this is an example of where we've provided guidance around what you may want to consider including. So again, we've not provided in this section a prompted area, but more so information that you should consider including in this section. Section 4 is Code of Conduct. So a Code of Conduct can be an important step in establishing an inclusive and respectful culture. So consider outlining important practices in relation to behavior. We've also in this section here in the fold template provided a few examples again for you to consider including that are prompted areas. For example, members of insert home name must behave in a respectful manner, speaking one person at a time, limiting the number of distractions. And again, all of the examples that are provided are just that. They're examples. They don't have to be included. You may find that they need to be adjusted for your home, or that specific example may not be applicable for your residence council. So again, it is very flexible and can be adjusted to meet your council's needs. Section 5 is a more lengthy section, so it captures all of the specifics of your residence council. So things like date, time, location, and then all of the specifics around minutes and voting process and quorum. So in this section, you'll notice on the template that it's broken down into subsections for you. And each of the subsections do have either examples of what you should consider including or prompted areas. For example, that may read, the meetings will be held on insert date of every month unless deemed necessary to cancel a meeting with advance notice by council. So again, we've tried to make it very straightforward in providing you the information you need to make it specific to your home. Section 6 is where we capture elections and terms of office. So please describe the following of your election process. And then we've outlined some questions that could be considered or should be considered when outlining this section. As well as below it, we've also included some examples of prompted areas for you to just simply fill in that blank. Section 7, we capture financial management, and this is a very important section for residence council to make sure that they have themselves covered, as residence council does have the ability to sponsor and plan activities. We really want you to look at the questions that we've laid out and have you consider answering those so that you are fully protected. Some of those questions that we've outlined are where are the residence council funds stored, who has signing authority, and making some type of a blanket statement or declaring that all funds, that funds are used to benefit all residents or in the residents' best interest. So the key word there being all residents, and that's why that section is bolded. Representation. In this section, we're looking to have your home capture how it aims to capture the collective voice, again, of all residents. So this may, again, look very different in every home. It may be a process, a practice, a promise, a subcommittee, and that's why we've left it very blank and very open so that it can be customized by your council. Section 9 is rules of order and procedure. So again, we've given the example of Robert's Rules of Order. Most councils do cite Robert's Rules of Order, and they are a set of rules that can help run effective meetings and something that your members can refer to when necessary. Section 10, we've captured the conflict of interest. So again, we've given you, in this little blurb here, we've given you the definition of what conflict of interest is, and we've just added a little piece of considering what may be considered or what you may foresee as a conflict of interest to be captured in this section. And section 11 is the end of the template, and you'll see there that there's a statement made, which we already went through during the instructions, but that stating that bylaws can be altered or amended, but will need to be adopted by a majority vote by its members. And there's a section at the bottom to sign off and to date the bylaws once they've been approved. So that's the end of the template, and I would just emphasize again that it's created to not be prescriptive, that it is a detailed guide so that it can be adjusted to suit your council's specific needs. So at that point, I would just want to open it up for discussion amongst one another. Part of the feedback that we heard during our usability test was that it's important to have opportunity to speak peer-to-peer. So please feel free to unmute your lines or type in your chat box. And we're really looking for peer-to-peer conversation. So I'll just unmute your lines. And for those of you who have any types of comments or advice or questions, please feel free to ask those now. So maybe it would help if I just provided a few examples of perhaps what might occur in the absence of bylaws, and maybe it'll get each of you thinking a little bit about your own council and what you may want to ask your peers while you have them here on the line today. So in the absence of bylaws, we might see residence councils and their assistants be unclear about their procedures. So for example, they may not know when to have elections or how to have elections, or where the residence council's funds are or how they can be spent. We may also see residence councils and their assistants not have the proper guidance. So for example, they may not know or understand their leadership structure or what their roles and responsibilities are of the leadership team. We may also see residence councils and their assistants struggle with consistency. So perhaps if there's a change in leadership or assistant, if there are no bylaws, residence council leaders and their assistants may not have that consistent approach to residence council. I've just seen a comment come here in the chat box. So how often should elections take place? Does anybody on the line want to share with Kelly what they do at their home?
Yeah. And if it's every year, once a year makes sense.
So I've just heard somebody comment once a year. Does anybody else practice anything different at their home? Yeah, Wendy's just responded that they hold theirs annually as well. St. George also holds their elections yearly. Sharon has just mentioned in the chat box that at Newmarket Health Center, they hold their elections every 3 years. Sharon, while I have you on the line, can I put you on the spot to perhaps make a comment around your opinion on the template? So Sharon Cook was one of our participants in the usability test, so she has already tested the template, and I'm just hoping you could share with our peers this afternoon your opinion of the template. I will unmute you. Give me one moment. Sharon, I think you're self-muted.
Okay, hi. It's Sharon Cook at Newmarket Health Center. Yes, I find that the template is very usable. It helps you to align how your resident council should operate and operate efficiently. And it gives you the guidelines to know what the process of the resident council should be. And also, too, it helps everybody understand what needs to be done to run it efficiently and understand each of the processes. We do have our elections every 3 years, and the reason we do that is if we do it every year, then it takes you all that long to really get used to it, and then you go into another election. And I find in long-term care, there's not too many people that will come up to the plate to go into the officers' positions. We have a leadership team in our home, and there are no presidents, no vice presidents, no treasurers or secretaries. We just call ourselves the team, and we try to work together. And I find that doing that, nobody's being pressured, and everybody works together better. The guidelines also helps to know with the staff support how to work within the home, because staff change as well as residents. So it just helps for the next person coming on, and it gives that guidance for the next set of councils.
Thanks, Sharon. Is there anybody else on the line that would like to take this opportunity to ask each other any questions or give any advice on what it is that you do in your home with regards to bylaws? Can I just ask, at the beginning of this webinar, we realized that 72% of those on the line had no bylaws in place. For those of you who answered no, do you foresee this template as being useful to you in moving forward? Okay, great. We've got a few yeses in the chat box there. So seeing as we have a quiet bunch this afternoon, I will move on to see if there are any questions or final thoughts or comments. Okay, so we've just had a question come in. Hopefully some of your peers will be able to help comment on this. Wendy is asking, we have bylaws, but how can we keep residents informed of these bylaws? She has also stated that she has given out copies, but they seem to forget about them. Is there anybody else on the line?
It's Sharon Cook at Newmarket. You can always post your bylaws. And if all your executive have a copy of the bylaws in a binder, it's easier so that it doesn't get lost.
Great, thank you, Sharon. Wendy has said that she will try that.
Okay.
Any final comments, thoughts, suggestions for moving forward? Okay. Well, thank you so much for everybody for joining us this afternoon. I did want to just mention that there will be no live webinar in January. We will resume our monthly webinars again in February, but we will be releasing our 5th module January 16th on the voice of residence councils. So thank you again for joining us. The bylaw template is available through your materials as well as our website. And I will say bye for now.